Hello, welcome to Cooking with Elaine. Tonight we're going to do spaghetti with meatballs and meat sauce. I know it sounds a little strange, but my husband loves meatballs and I like the meat sauce, so we combine the two. So, like in my other videos that I've told you, I don't believe that everything has to be made homemade. I believe that you can add things to products that you've bought to make them taste even better. Now tonight, I'm going to do the meatballs. I purchased these, they're pre-done. They're delicious, so why should I go through the trouble of making them when these are very good? So I already have the oven preheated to 375. I'm gonna take these out. I'm gonna put them, I have a cookie sheet here that I've covered with aluminum foil because it makes cleanup a lot easier. I don't wanna have to scrub after hamburger has cooked on. So I'm going to take these out. I'm going to place them on the cookie sheet. And sometimes they get stuck in here, so a spoon will help you lift them out a little bit, you know, just to pop them out. So we're going to get these lined up here on our cookie sheet. These take about, 30 or so minutes to cook in the oven. And then I'm also going to add them to my sauce once it's done, so they'll finish cooking more. But if you want them nice and crispy, you want to put them in the oven. You can also cook these on the stovetop if you prefer. I'm busy with the sauce right now, so I prefer to use the oven, and it also is not so messy. So I'm going to get rid of this out of our way here. And now that these are all arranged, now I'm going to get started on the sauce. So in order to do that, I have approximately 1 pound of hamburger. And as I've told you in previous videos, when I find things on sale, I buy the large packs. I then break them up. This I broke up into 1 pound packages. I flavor seal it and I stick it in the freezer. So let's get our burner on. You don't want to scorch this, so you don't want your burner up too high. So I do want my meat to brown, but I don't want it burnt. So I am going to get my pan up. I have my stove set at about 7, so it's a medium high. Let's get that nice and warm. We'll get this into the pan, get it broken up, and get started. So in the meanwhile here, I have a bell pepper and I have half of a brown onion. So I'm going to dice these up because, again, as I said, I am using a jarred sauce here. I've got the Barilla marinara. Easy for me to say, isn't it? And I also have a Barilla tomato and basil. Now again, I'm going to add to that. I'm going to add the bell pepper. I'm going to add the onion to that. I'm also going to add some spices to that to make it to my liking. So again, cooking doesn't have to be just take it out of a jar, throw it in, and then it's not too great to eat for dinner. If you add a few fresh ingredients, if you add some spices, you can turn it into your own sauce. So there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So let's see here. While this is getting warm, let's start on dicing up this bell pepper. And it all depends on you, whether you like your bell pepper. You can do it small, you can do it large pieces. I do mine kind of a medium. I don't want it too small that I can't taste it, but I also don't want it so large that I have a mouthful of bell pepper. So I take out the seeds, and now I'm going to start dicing this up. And this is just a small bell pepper. If you like more bell pepper, you can use a larger one. Or if you don't like a lot of bell pepper, just use half. You don't have to use a full one. I like it. I like a lot of bell pepper, so that's just a personal preference. Again, cooking is supposed to be about what makes you happy and what you want to eat, not about what someone else says should be done. I'm here just to give you ideas of how I make things, and I think they turn out pretty good. So that's just, I'm trying to give you some hints, some pointers so that you can make your own homemade meals. So we have the hamburger cooking here in the pan. Gonna break it up. And then we're also going to season it because I like my meat seasoned. I don't like just plain hamburger. So I am going to add some seasonings. So I'm going to start with a little bit of salt. And again, I don't measure. My things are done by feel, if you would. and taste. I know how much salt I like in my food. I'm going to put in some pepper. I am going to add some onion powder. I'm going to add garlic powder. And we're going to let this cook. Get this nice and browned up. In the meanwhile, I'm going to start my water on the back here to start to get warm. It doesn't need to boil yet because I'm not ready for my spaghetti noodles. But I think one of the problems that people have with cooking, I think one of the things that's very intimidating, is getting everything out at the same time and having it all nice and hot. That just takes practice. You'll get it down. You'll understand the things that need to cook longer, things that need to cook less. As you work more and more towards cooking homemade meals, you'll get it down. It makes it easy. And you just have to learn to be able to kind of cook 2 or 3 things at one time. So it is possible to turn out an entire meal all at the same time and have it all hot and tasty. So here I am. I'm just going to dice up this pepper here. And again, I am no expert at dicing food up here, but I cut it the way I like it, so you can cut up your food the way you like it. And of course, with doing Italian food, I have to have my Italian seasoning here because I love it, so this I will be using tonight. So we'll get that out. Nothing like a nice hot plate of pasta with meat sauce on a cold winter evening. Makes you feel nice and homey and full. All right, so now I have this brown onion here. I have half. And I do about a half because it's only 1 pound of meat. So, I mean, you can do more if you like more onion. I'm just going to do this half of this right now. Once my meat gets cooked, then I will throw this in, get it sauteed up. I'm going to toss these. These are ends that I don't want to use in my sauce. So again, let's check our meat here. And I think one of the important things when you're using hamburger in any recipe is getting the grease out of it, because you don't want that. You know, you don't want to just start dumping stuff in here and eat all that grease. It's not going to be healthy for you, and it's not going to taste very good. So we don't care about all this grease. We'll be able to get this out as soon as we get it browned. I will get a small dish here so that I can use it to get the grease out. Now, in the meantime, I need to get some salt in my pasta water. I know you've been told by many chefs that, oh, make it taste like the ocean. I don't know about you, but I don't want my spaghetti tasting like the ocean, so I do add salt to my water, but I don't think you need to add as much as they like. Unless you want it to taste that way, that's up to you. So, and as you can see, once again, you are in my real kitchen where I really live and where I really cook every day. So, okay, I'm starting to acquire some oil here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this spoon. I'm going to just start scooping this out, put it in this bowl so I can get this out of my meat. And some of this isn't grease, it's the liquid that comes out of the meat and things like that. But again, this is nothing that I want in my recipes or in my food. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to set that aside to cool and continue cooking this. All right. So now that my hamburger, as you can see, is starting to brown, you can see that, it's starting to brown up. So now I'm going to add the peppers and the onions to it because I want to saute those. I want to get the flavor into this. So I'm going to add these in. Grab a food mover here. I'm just going to scoop them in. Okay, so I've got them in now. I'm going to, oops, see, one overboard. All right, so now I've got that going. So now I'm going to add some of my Italian seasoning because, as I said, oh, and look, it's brand new. I just must have had to buy a new one. So let's take that top off there. You know, and I know there's a lot of choices out there today for busy people, for meals, and that's okay too if that's what you want to do. But I just like knowing what's going into my food. So cooking myself, and I enjoy cooking. To me, cooking is relaxing. So there we go. We add some of that. And as I've told you in previous videos, you can always add more, but you can't take away. So just don't over add a seasoning in the beginning until after you taste it and see where it is and where you want it to go. Oh man, I wish you could smell this because it is smelling very, very good already. So now that that's going, now along with my Barilla pasta sauces here, I also have a can of Hunt's diced tomatoes, basil, garlic, and oregano. I'm going to add that because, of course, basil, garlic, and oregano are what you use in Italian cooking. And I like the canned tomatoes. It gives it more of a, even though it's a canned item, it gives it that chunky, you know, little, to me, it's almost like a freshness, but it's the chunkiness. So when you bite into it, you have that tomato. Kind of like grandma's sauce, you know? So, just get this, keep browning this up. I'm going to keep stirring it at this point because you don't want your onions or your peppers to burn. So you just want to get it until your onions are translucent. There we go. Oh, that's smelling so good. Okay, so I'm going to get this because I'm going to need this to turn over those meatballs when they're done. All right, my onions are starting to turn translucent. My peppers are looking good. So at this time, I'm going to add in the canned tomatoes. This is, again, the Hunt's diced basil, garlic, and oregano. Now, if you don't like basil, garlic, or oregano, you can just use diced tomatoes. So, and nowadays in the grocery store, there's so many flavors of diced tomatoes besides plain that, you know, you can pick whatever you kind of like. I'm going to stir this around. Oh man, it's smelling good. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, now I'm going to take my jarred sauce. Here we go in with the marinara. Going to put this in. Get that all in there. You've paid for it, so don't waste it. All righty. Throw that away and come back over here. We're going to put in the other one. And this one is the basil because basil's used a lot in Italian cooking. It's kind of got a sweet taste to it. Some people don't like basil, so it's a personal preference. But, you know, there's so many jarred spaghetti sauces out there that you can try so many different ones and see what actually appeals to you. See what you like and what you want to use. Alexa, stop. My timer's gone off, so now it's time to flip over the meatballs here. Before I do that, I'm going to turn this down. I'm going to give this a stir just because I don't want anything to stick. So, see what I was talking about earlier as far as you have to be able to kind of do 2-3 things at once. And it sounds overwhelming, but it's really not. You know, it's not like, oh my gosh, those are going to sit in the oven an extra 30 seconds and it's going to be a big disaster. Just give the time to take this, stir it. Now I can come on over here to the oven. The meatballs are cooking. Yep, they've got a ways to go here. So I'm just going to take and flip them over. There we go. You know, I really should have used some Pam on this cookie sheet before, even on the foil here, before I put these down. Because they're sticking slightly. So just a tip in the future. For myself and you. Okay. So now I'm gonna go back to my sauce here. I'll work a little more. I'm gonna let all this kind of set and cook together so that I can taste it, and then I'll see. You know, it's got to get warm. You can't just taste it fresh out of the jar. You want it to get a little bit warm. Let all the flavors come together. So I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. Again, I've got it up on about 7 right now, but you got to watch it because tomato sauce will scorch. So just kind of keep your eye on it. Just keep stirring it. So, and then like I said, once it gets warm and some of the flavors that I've already put in here will get through it, I'm going to taste it because I want to see where I am, see what I have to add. if anything. I mean, it might be great the way it is, but I might go, I need a little more garlic, or I need a little more of the Italian seasoning. You know, I need more salt. I mean, there's so many things. So I'm going to take a spoon here. I'm going to taste my sauce. That's very good. So I think it needs more salt in my opinion. So I'm going to add a little salt. I'm going to add a little pepper. And I am going to add some more garlic here, garlic powder. And I would like some more Italian seasoning. So I'm going to take this shaker and I'm going to shake it all across the top of it. I'm not going to cover it like you can't see anything, but I'm going to add a generous amount. Okay? All right. Now I'm going to stir this. Because again, you want everything to cook. You want all your flavors to meld. Otherwise, you won't know what your finished product is going to taste like, and you've got to let it cook a little bit. So I know there's some people who think you have to let spaghetti sauce cook all day long, and that's great. If you have the time for that, that's fantastic. I'm going to put a lid on this right now to keep it going, keep it warm. I personally don't have all day, usually to make dinner. So this is something you can make when you come home from work. If you don't want to do, you know, the meatballs, or you can do meatballs and no hamburger, either or. If you're just going to do the meatballs, you know, spaghetti and meatballs with tomato sauce, you just leave out, of course, browning your hamburger. But what you're going to want to do is you're still going to want that onion and that bell pepper in there. So what I would suggest is take your pan, put a little bit of olive oil in it, get it heated up, you know, medium warm. Saute your onions, saute your bell pepper, then add in your jarred sauces, add in your canned tomatoes, and then start building your flavors from there. Add your spices that you want. Let it cook, let it warm up, taste it, see where you are, then add to it. So that would be my suggestion. So I'm going to let all this cook for a while here. I'm going to let those meatballs continue, and we'll be back in a few. So while you've been gone, I have taken a little bit of time. I've cleaned up my workstation because I don't like to cook in a dirty kitchen. So I have wiped everything down. I've washed my knives. I've put my knives back away. I've washed my cutting board. I've put that away. So we're back. Let's take a look at the sauce here. Oh, look at that. Oh, it's just bubbling up, looking good. Now look, see, I just made a mess on my clean stove. So let's see here. So what I want to do now, let me clean that mess up. Let me grab a paper towel here and just wipe that up real quick. What I want to do now, because the sauce has been cooking probably about 10 minutes or so since you've been gone, so I want to get a spoon and I want to take a taste. Again, remember this has been cooking, so some of the flavors have gotten through it. So I want to stir it up here. Now be careful, this is going to be very hot. So I want to blow on it here. Then I want to taste it and see what I think it needs, or is it ready? Oh, that's good. I still think we need a tad more salt and maybe some pepper. So I'm going to add some pepper. And instead of just plain salt this time, I'm going to add some garlic salt because it's got both. And I like garlic. My husband likes garlic, and we both like salt, so I'm going to add some here. Again, over time, and I know you're probably going to think, well, it's kind of hard to follow your cooking because you don't give me the exact amount. Just don't overdo it. Put some in, let it cook a little bit, taste it. If you say, it needs a, a smidge more. It's kind of like when you are salting your food on your plate. You don't just take the salt shaker and just dump it all on your plate. You know how much you like on a particular type of food. So again, as you build up your repertoire of cooking and you work at this, it will get easier and easier. And it's, again, as I said, it's all about taste. So I'm going to take my spoon here and wash it because no reason to dirty up another spoon. I'll just wash this one. Dry it. Alexa, stop. Sounds like our meatballs are ready to be checked again. But right now, I want to taste this again after we've just added these items. So added some garlic salt and some pepper. So Let's see here.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Alexa, stop. Better, much better. That's what it needed. All right. Oh yeah. Yep, that's what it needed. Just needed that garlic salt and a little bit of pepper, give it a little pepperiness. So let's check these meatballs now and let's see where we are on this. Oh yeah, they're sizzling hot here. So now what I want to do, I'm going to get these put in the sauce. I'm just gonna plunk them in here. There's no rhyme nor reason to it. You just want to get them all in. And then they're going to continue cooking in the sauce. And they'll pick up the flavor of your sauce into the meatballs. So, there we go. I'm going to put this over here. Okay. So, and I like to leave my oven open because I've already paid for that heat. It's going to heat up the house a little bit. So now let's stir these meatballs in. Okay. Looking really good now. Look at this. Oh my gosh. Everything's looking good. So now I'm going to turn down the temperature. Okay, I've got the meatballs in. Everything is looking delicious. But now I'm going to turn down the temperature here because I don't want anything to overcook. So I'm going to turn it down to about 4. I'm going to put the lid back on again and just keep it to where it's simmering so that all the flavor that's in my sauce is going to go into the meatballs also. So at this time, now it's basically, I am ready to let this just cook for a while. Let it, and I'm not saying you have to let it cook for a long time. I still have to do my pasta. So that's going to take, 7 to 8, 9 minutes, depending on how well you like your pasta done. So what I'm going to do at this time, I am going to get my spaghetti going. I need to get my pot going. I need to get it to a rapid boil. And I'm just going to follow the instructions that are right on the side of the spaghetti. Spaghetti is not hard to cook. One of the things you want to be careful of once you put your spaghetti into the water, I'll show you, you want to keep it broken up so that it doesn't turn into big hard clumps. I think that's the main thing. And I think people either undercook it or overcook it. So you want to try your spaghetti and, take a bite of it and see if that's how you like it or not. So, all right, I'll be back with you. I'm going to get this pot boiling right now and then we'll be back in a few. All right, welcome back. So I have the water just about ready for our pasta to go in. I'm going to wash my hands here before I touch the dry pasta. Tonight I'm using spaghetti noodles, but again, if you like a different type of pasta, you can use whatever pasta you prefer. So it's kind of like what you like. Now I am going to do the entire box only because we like leftovers, and spaghetti leftover is delicious because the flavors kind of set in it and taste even better. So I am going to do the entire box. You don't have to if you're making a smaller amount than what I made. Like instead of using 2 jars of sauce, you could only use 1 jar of sauce, half a pound of hamburger, or only half of those meatballs, whichever you prefer. Just cut everything down. If you'd do like a quarter of a onion, you would do a half of the bell pepper. So you can learn to just quarter things up, half them. You'll learn to cut back as your recipe if you're making more or less based on what I'm doing here. So you can kind of make it to suit yourself and your family better. So I'm going to get this going. I'm going to put this pasta in here and let's see what the box says. I believe it's usually like, 10 to 11 minutes for al dente pasta, which is what you want. So I'm going to wait till it comes to a nice rapid boil. I need to get out a colander because we need to, of course, drain this pasta when it's done. So I'm going to get my colander out here and set it in my sink so that I can put that in. Okay. My water's getting up there. Let's see how our sauce is doing. Oh yeah, our sauce is nice and warm. So I'm actually going to turn that off. I'm just going to let it sit. It's not going to get cold because it's only going to take us 10 to 11 minutes to do this. So while that's finishing coming up, I am going to do some classic French bread with this tonight. If you like sourdough by sourdough, this is just a classic French bread. It's nice and soft. I did purchase this today at the store. If you don't happen to have, you didn't happen to go to the store, I just happened to be there today, so I picked this up. You can also use frozen French bread. You can use frozen breadsticks. They make some delicious frozen breadsticks. Just toss those in the oven because you've already had your oven heated up for your meatballs. So when you're ready to do your pasta, you can kind of throw your breadsticks in. So it's kind of what you like. If you like sliced bread, use sliced bread. It's whatever you prefer to have with your spaghetti. I'm using classic French bread because it's what we like. So as soon as this gets up and going, I'll be adding the pasta to this. Now, when I add my pasta, I do have one of these handy dandy pasta forks because it actually does help break everything up a little better once you get it into the water. As I stated earlier, you don't want your pasta to clump. You don't want big clumps of pasta because that's disgusting when you go to eat it. So you just want to make sure that, as you put your pasta in, you just stir, 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 and keep it broken up. So this is just about ready to go here. It's rapidly boiling. Yes, you can see the steam coming off here. So, all right, I've got bubbles coming up. So now I'm going to take my pasta. I'm going to slide this in. And then I'm going to toss this out. And now I'm going to start just pressing on my noodles. I kind of push them down just so they start sinking into the water. You want to get your water back up to a boil. Be careful that the pot does not boil over. You can kind of help it along here, push it in. Just keep pushing it. It'll all get in there. You can use a larger pot. I would not recommend using a smaller pot, but you can use a larger pot if you prefer. This is just my pasta pot that I like to use. So I've got it in here. So I'm going to set a timer. I'm going to test this in 10 minutes. So Alexa, set a timer for 10 minutes.
10 minutes, starting now.
So as it's starting, again, I'm going to try to break this all up because I don't want it just to clump in here. So I just kind of get it going. Keep an eye on it. Make sure it doesn't boil over. So again, as I've said before, cooking does not have to be intimidating. Cooking's not about what a chef tells you you're supposed to be eating. And, cooking and eating is about enjoyment. It's not like, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. You don't have to. You can find shortcuts, ways that make you happy, ways that, make your family happy. You don't have to always do everything from scratch. Just find things to add to some of your products that you buy pre-done, and it really makes a big difference. So I'm going to leave that alone for a few minutes here. I really want it to get a good boil going on. So while this is cooking, I'm going to break away for a few minutes. When I get closer to it being done, we'll be right back. So my noodles have gotten softer. We've been away here a minute or two here, and you can see they're getting nice and soft. So again, I'm just stirring them around. You don't have to overdo it. You don't want them to get gloopy and gloppy, but you do want to make sure they're good and separated, as I said before. So I've got them going, and once I get to the timer, then I'm going to take one out. I'm going to test it, and I'm going to see how long I need to either cook it more or to see if I can pull them. So again, pasta is a personal preference. Some people like it very al dente. Some people like it just medium. Some people like it mushy. I like it al dente a little bit because it's going to continue to cook once you put the sauce on it anyway. So you don't want it overdone, but of course I don't want crunchy pasta or raw pasta either. So I'm just stirring this around, making sure nothing's sticking to the bottom. And another thing I want to do right now is I want to grab out some olive oil, because once my noodles are drained, I am going to add some olive oil into the pan and also on the noodles. It keeps your noodles from sticking together, and also it gives it a good flavor, olive oil, and it's very good for you. So I do that after I put them back in the pan. I'll slosh a little bit of olive oil on them. So it'll keep it from sticking. And then when I put them in the refrigerator, as far as leftovers, you can do it one of two ways. You can keep your noodles and your sauce separate. So I just take a Ziploc bag, put my noodles in it, squeeze all the air out, put it in the refrigerator. Or if you want to mix it all together in one pot, then you just take, your leftovers, stick them in a bowl, put a lid on it, and stick it in the refrigerator. So again, as I said, the longer you let it set, for a few days, I mean, you can have this for lunch, you can have it for dinner, take it with you to work, school, whatever you want. But there is enough here to make several meals. And tonight, on top of my pasta, when it's all done, I am going to put on some Parmesan cheese. This is a shredded Parmesan cheese. If you like the bigger chunks of it, you can get, it's more like a flake of it. It's the larger pieces. This is just shredded. I like the shredded Parmesan cheese. I think it just melts better, looks better, and it's easier because it's not just so much. It's, you can kind of sprinkle it over the top. So, and then I always put it on the table because, some people like more cheese. They want to add a little bit extra. So these are looking really good, really good. They're not sticking together. I've got them all nice and separated. They're just cooking. Alexa, how much time left on the timer?
You have 4 minutes and 10 seconds.
So we got about
left on the 10-minute timer.
4 minutes, and then I'm going to check and see where we are. So I'll be back in just a minute. So still here stirring. Just keeping an eye on it, making sure nothing's sticking to the bottom of the pan. Our timer should be going off any time now so that we can check our pasta for doneness. Everything's looking really good. My sauce is looking good. That's ready to go. Should be any time now. The old thing about a watch pot never boils. I'm watching it, it's boiling. Okay, our timer just went off, so let's test one of our noodles. Be careful, they're gonna be very, very hot. So you wanna just take them. I got a little piece here. Yep, I think that's done. Could use maybe 30 seconds more. Yeah, maybe about 30 seconds more. So I'm just gonna stir it a little more. Again, it's how, you like your noodles, and you'll learn over time of doing it how long it takes to cook noodles and how long you want to, whether you want them nice and soft or you want them a little crunchy. That's up to you. Better, see? Just had to stir it a little while longer. So perfect. Okay, so I'm going to turn this off. Now I'm going to take this boiling water over the pan. I'm going to dump it into my colander. Give myself a facial here while I'm at it. Okay, while that's draining, I'm going to take my pot, I'm going to put it back on the stove. I'm going to take a little bit of olive oil. I'm going to guess a couple tablespoons, if that, right now. You're just going to put a little bit so it goes in the bottom. You want to take your pasta. You never rinse your pasta. Shake it out. You do want to get the water out of it. Grab a towel here to keep that. Put it in there. There we go. Now I'm going to add a little more olive oil to my pasta. Not a lot, a couple tablespoons max. As you see, I barely poured it. I just want it to coat the noodles so that they don't stick. Okay, so now we're ready to plate. So I'm going to take this lid off here, and this is very hot, so be very careful. Put this over here. I'm going to get a ladle because I like to ladle my sauce on. So let's take our dinner plate here. I'm going to grab a good heaping of pasta. That's a little bit much here. So, okay. And I need more than that. But I don't want a ton here. Depends on how much you want to eat, right? So there we go. Oh, that looks like a good amount right there. Okay. Now this is my husband's plate, and he's the one that likes the meatballs. I do not prefer meatballs. So I'm going to take and dish out a couple of the meatballs here. About 3 should be good for him. Then I'm going to take this ladle and I'm just going to scoop up some of the meat sauce. Put that over the top. Okay. I'm going to grab my Parmesan cheese, and look, my meatball got away there, so stick it back up there. I'm going to grab my shredded Parmesan cheese. I am going to sprinkle it liberally on there. There we go. And you have spaghetti with meatballs and meat sauce. So until we get together and cook again, enjoy. Bye.